Many people have an intense fear of deep bodies of water. Thalassophobia is said to be brought on by the vast darkness before them, and I count myself among those who are terrified by the shadowy uncertainty of water that I can't see into. I feel a very specific kind of angst when even imagining being in the middle of a murky lake or, God forbid, cast away into the ocean. The dismissive science behind this would say our ancestors encountered large predatory animals, among other dangers, in these serene depths. Like some ancestral memory in our DNA warning us about it. But what if this terror is pointing to something more transcendent? There's this unsettling idea that I've had about this, and I can't seem to shake it. That at any given moment, we are surrounded by invisible beings, predatory intelligences, and perhaps benevolent ones, observing us in and around our reality from a higher one. Many religions and cosmologies speak of these beings all around us. It was almost a part of daily life centuries ago. Let's use angels as an example. How many classes of angels are there? What about other celestial beings? There are mentions of these phenomena and beings in Holy Scriptures, and they're given umbrella-like terms like angel, which translates to messenger, but may not necessarily be the purpose of these beings. I have posited that there is an entire zoological spectrum of spiritual beings reflected in lower life on Earth. There's the saying, as above, so below. I think this is true, that we have this entire spectrum of different types of entities, higher intelligences, and sometimes inferior ones. The Bible speaks of fantastic, powerful angels that rank far above man, for now anyway. I have a theory that we are like seeds that are meant to grow into something greater than angels. There is this evidence, if you want to call it that, pointing to men being a potential for something greater. Also, that there is something in us that makes us greater than that of angels, like a paradox. It's about our potential. So if we already have ultra-powerful celestial angels and lowly mankind, this kind of explains why all these beings around us seem to have such a great interest in us. All these great religions and cosmologies talk about how the actions and events happening on Earth affecting the outer realities. And it seems to make perfect sense. What affects them affects us. What affects us affects them. We're all tied together. One of the explanations for us not being able to sense them is the fall. And this isn't an exclusive Christian belief. Many tribes and religions believe that we were something much greater. We had greater senses, a greater sense of the depth of the universe. And there was some type of collapse, some type of original sin. It was Adam and Eve in the garden in Genesis for the Christians, and many other mystical beliefs and mythologies speak of how the origin of man has been degraded. We weren't deities, but in comparison to what we are now, it just doesn't compare to what we were before. These mythologies are also full of prophecy of a return to this state, a reconciliation with the higher forces, reconciliation with God, with our sin nature being defeated, our imperfections being transcended, this type of thing. We're supposedly surrounded by these beings that, because of our fall and collapse, we can't sense or see anymore. Scientists, physicists talk about how there are actually 10, maybe even 11 or 12 spatial dimensions, and we can only comprehend 3. It leaves this space between spaces, this whole greater capacity of reality that to our scientific mind is empty by all accounts, because we are so obsessed with evidence. But as we're even told in science, there's this contradiction that says that nature abhors a vacuum. You know, if there are these beings that are so far above us, there has to be this nature abhors a vacuum. So what is filling in this space, these steps between a great celestial being with all this potential and human beings? Is there an entire order of beings, intermediate beings between us? And there are these cosmic steps of existence. But the fact that we are just lowly human beings at the mercy of these, celestial angels that are so far above us, there has to be something in between, right? It doesn't make sense that there's just this voided boundary, this space that is not occupied. It doesn't make sense to our scientific or even spiritual minds. After a few centuries of scientific renaissance, the world has become rational, only concerned with what we can test by our own standards. We separate the real from the superstitions of the past. We have been in this era that we have called disenchantment. Even something as mystical as time has become unitized into passing hours, days, years. It's like this matrix that we've cast into the periphery of known history as we hope to spread our tools and measures into the extrapolation of the abyss. And this new religion of scientism, seeing nothing beyond its sphere of knowledge. But the pendulum may be swinging back. We are on the precipice of a phenomenon known as Re-Enchantment. It's defined as the attempt to restore depth and meaning to a world nearly crushed under the boot of mechanistic thinking. It's a re-examination of the world through wonder and beauty. It's not exactly a return to the naive superstition of the past, but it's a respect for the possibility of things previously thought to be impossible. It's a remembering that the world once felt alive and responsive. Phenomenology is the doctrine of the primacy of experience. It doesn't rely on some model, some external thing that someone has told you about, some system built by other people. Then it relies primarily on your experience, your lived reality. And that is the primary prerequisite for something being deemed real. We are told that there's no such thing as monsters, but in experiencing things like thalassophobia, it's as if our own minds instinctually know that this is not true when we face total darkness or deep water, just as an example. There's also that saying that there's no such thing as an atheist, or there are no atheists in a foxhole. When faced with annihilation or death, someone instantly becomes spiritual. When push comes to shove, it's that cold rationalism leaves, and it's time to pay the piper, and all of a sudden, people are hedging their bets. They experience existential fear like they've never felt, never had to feel. It's a strange, interesting kind of phenomenon. It's very strange to see all of these atheists and people who have cling to these scientific modalities and scientific ideas that are all of a sudden struck by this, Re-Enchantment. they're struck by this re-enchantment, that they're suddenly open to the possibility that perhaps God did put his fingerprint onto creation. He initiated this, that these transcendent forces are the impetus for our movement into order. You know, the entropy that wants to tear the universe apart. There are all these strange kind of theories that just get flipped upside down. Idea that the universe is slowly drifting apart, which there may be some credence to. And if it's doing that, you know, there seems to be this consensus, or there was. And now all of a sudden, the idea just gets flipped on its head. You know, there are these theories of now the universe collapsing the opposite direction, or not moving at all. It becomes a religion of these ideas that science tells us, you know, if you ask someone, have you witnessed with your own eyes the drifting of the stars apart? Could you measure it with your own body through your own experience? Phenomenologically, can you tell me, did you see it with your own eyes? These things happen over such large distances and over such long periods of time that the human experience cannot account directly for that. You cannot say, I saw it with my own eyes in normal circumstances, in the spirit of scientism. You cannot do it. It has to be outside. But all of these things have been preached to us, and we've been beat over the head with it. And when all of a sudden, you know, the edges, the periphery is frayed, and we have these ideas being proliferated that don't fit in to the gospel of scientism. Suddenly there's this huge rebellion. And it's not all a good thing. Okay, this is one thing I wanted to discuss, that I use the pendulum metaphor because that's absolutely what's happening. The cold rationalism swing has happened in that direction for so long, since the Renaissance, hundreds of years, and now it's starting to unravel. And all of a sudden, no one knows what to believe. This is kind of scary. It's an absolute fracturing of every, you know, religious movement, every denomination of Christianity. Someone has got a different explanation, a different interpretation. It's this fracturing, and then lower fracturing, and then micro fracturing. Everything feels split apart. It's not always going to be like this. A unification will take place, but that's even scarier because it may not be a unifying force for something good necessarily. I think this is you know, secret societies. If you want to get conspiratorial, they call it order out of chaos. They create the chaos. Some of this is by design, and we can talk about the human element, but this is also happening on a spiritual level. I think that these secret societies, whatever you want to call it, you know, witchcraft, basically taking the will of the universe and trying to take it into your own hands for your own ego purposes, is just absolutely evil. It's something, you cannot transcend your own sin without the help of our Savior. And hey, do with that what you will. If you don't believe it, that's what I believe. And I can tell you from my experience, my lived experience, that He saved me from my own abyss. This splintering, that it's accelerating. It's just insane. It was just like every few years we were hit with this new idea, this new fad that everybody was talking about, that, you know, what is the Big Bang actually real? You know, is even if God exists, you know, you've got these Gnostic influences that are saying that even if God exists, doesn't mean just because He created this cosmos doesn't mean He's, you know, the transcendent one for all cosmos, that there are many other ones. There's the infinite, what do you call it? Trying to think of the name of it. Multiple universes idea, panpsychism, all these crazy theories, just everything's going in every direction. I can't even articulate it. I start to articulate it, and I could make a 2 or 3 hour video in depth and put you to sleep with all the unfolding of all that stuff. But it's like I feel the need right now to just grip onto the kind of as many parts as I can and kind of put together a rough picture, a rough image of the big picture, to bring these things together into the macrocosm of what's happening, because I can sense it. It's this movement towards something. And this is, I think, this fracturing of belief. I think forces beyond us are utilizing this confusion of mankind, because I think that we are the seed of something much, much greater. That I don't believe in past lives. We're born once, but once we are born, we are eternal beings, and we have this potential, this potential to move on, to graduate upward, to transcend into the next world, if we're allowed into this heavenly realm. And this potential, it says, Christ even says when prompted about marriage, he says that people won't be married, that they'll be like the angels. Now, we can have a discussion about sexuality, and I think that bottom line, I'm just going to bottom line it for you. I think there are things that are going to transcend sex, things that aren't just about carnal pleasure, things that are much better than that one thing. This thing that we're supposed to have purposed for marriage, within marriage, is there's going to be things and other experiences that transcend that. We're given sex is only a shadow of this thing that is going to exist in this other life. We have to just not worry. But people get caught up in that. People want to talk about how, well, we won't have sex because angels. Christ said that. It's not about that. My purpose for bringing that up, forgive the tangent, is that we are compared to angels. Human souls will be like the angels. There is this potentiality of the human soul to grow into something greater. Now you ask, well, what is an angel? Here we go. This is an aspect of enchantment, re-enchantment, is that we have to put this back under a lens, okay? These Renaissance images of these men, women in white cloths with wings and a halo over their head, that is not what they look like. They take all kinds of physical forms. The idea that I'm really driving toward right now is this need for humility. Because not only do we have that potentiality, and not only are we going to evolve, we can and we will evolve in the next life, given that we're not thrown into destruction and hell, is that we will look back at this life and, it's like trying to explain the complexities of some of the things that happen in civilization and society to a child. They're just not ready, and they have to be told in metaphor. They have to be told stories. Now, are we lying to these kids? No, we're telling the truth. You can tell the truth and give an account of existence and purpose and meaning in these stories. Christ used stories. They were parables, and they're told with characters. And you can call them a mythology or tall tales, but they tell the truth. And they're truer than true. Because instead of having all of these massive details and scientific data, that will eventually become corrupted if you're trying to pass it down through generations. You're telling the core of the meaning of the story. And in its simplicity, it is preserved and passed on. And that's just so important. And that's why mythology and the story and ancient myths are so fascinating to me, is that there is a seed of the absolute truth in there. And all the details can be understood and will be understood at some point. But I guess you have to take it on faith and meditate on these stories and the spiritual themes. And that extrapolates into the actual truth.